What's up, people? Welcome to Home Chef-onomics, where today we're saving money while cooking bacon. I don't know about you, but I friggin' love bacon, and today we're cooking it two ways. First, we'll pan fry a few strips. This is great if you're cooking for yourself or one other person. Second, we'll use a sheet pan to bake a larger bacon batch to bestow upon the bellies of our beloved. Bacon costs anywhere from about 45 to 90 cents per strip, making it a cost-effective way to feed a crowd. Follow the link in description for a detailed recipe and cost breakdown. Let's get cooking. In a wild turn of events, we'll begin with bacon. I should really clean that drawer, but let's move right along and chuck this over here. My advice on purchasing bacon is as follows. 1. Always thick cut. Thin bacon has the texture of a cracker once it's cooked, and we don't want crackers, we want bacon. As thick cut bacon cooks, it retains its meaty texture, and that's what Daddy likes. Tip number 2. Buy the bacon with the highest meat to fat ratio. More pink, less white. The white fat will render out and largely disappear. The meat will stay and we can eat it. More meat, more value. My bacon costs $5.60, which comes out to 51 cents per strip. Not a bad deal. That's great and all, but how are we gonna cook it? Glad you asked. Method 1 is to pan fry the bacon. This method is perfect for 1 or 2 people, but does require more attention than method 2 to be covered later. Grab your pan with the largest surface area. The large surface area fits more bacon slices into the pan. My pan gets bonus points for having relatively high walls. Those will hold in the rendered fat nicely, so I don't have to worry too much about it splashing everywhere. Thanks, Mom, for the pan. Here's my longest pair of tongs. They'll be useful for maneuvering purposes. Next is a wire rack. There's a nice gap beneath this that will allow the excess fat to drain from the bacon before we eat it. I like a towel under mine, but it's not totally necessary. Final pre-cooked tip, wear your designated bacon t-shirt, something you don't mind getting some grease on because that will likely happen. Okay, bacon goes into the cold pan. I'm going for 4 strips today, but I fit as many as 6 in this pan. These can overlap some with no problem at all. The fat will render out and each strip will shrink to about half its current size. Heat goes to medium just at the start of this method. We're blasting the bacon with heat early to get the fat rendering. We'll lower the heat once things get poppin'.
What's poppin'?
Notice how the sound changes as things heat up. Quality home cooking involves all senses, and I rely on my hearing while cooking bacon. We want to nurture a steady sizzle throughout this process, avoiding something sounding more similar to a death metal concert. Now I have a few good tips for you to use with this pan fry method. You can see after a couple minutes, some of the solid fat has rendered to liquid. The key to perfect pan-fried bacon is controlling the temperature and movement of that fat. I gently guide it to all edges of the pan so each bacon strip gets some love. Next, I'll flip each strip to dunk the other side in the rendered fat. This encourages even cooking. I find it easiest to pinch the last inch or so of each strip, then flip it away from my body. This makes it less likely that I'll be bombarded by bombs of nuclear-heated bacon fat scientifically proven to be hotter than the surface of the sun. Check out this curled end here, tip coming shortly on how to handle that. We'll finish flipping these, and I like to stretch them out with my tongs. Frankly, I don't know that this helps, but I do it anyways. To remedy this curled tip, I'll move the fat over to this side of the pan, creating a deeper pool. Then I'll press the curled end down for 10 seconds or so, and ha! No more curled tip. Here's my bacon after 3 to 4 minutes. I've lowered my heat to medium-low now that plenty of fat has rendered and heated through. This fat can get too hot rather quickly, so I keep my heat on this lower setting for the rest of the cook time. I'll flip these every minute or so and use the deep in fat trick to speed up any parts that look a bit raw. Heyo! Good thing I've got my bacon shirt on. You'll likely find that the center of the bacon cooks faster than the tips. Just dunk the tips in the deep end every now and again to catch them back up. Maybe 6 minutes in now, things are looking great. The fat is at a safe controlled temperature and is gently frying both sides of the bacon. Be careful if you're filming this, wild bacon is known to fight back if feeling threatened. When my bacon is approaching optimal doneness, I flip it more frequently, maybe every 45 seconds or so to ensure neither side overcooks. Now you'll want to pull this from the pan just before it's reached your desired doneness. The fat on the surface of the bacon is still hot and will continue to cook each strip. You can see my bacon is still a bit floppy, but no fear. You'll see it'll crisp up after resting for a minute. Remove the pan from the heat immediately and turn off the burner to avoid the dangers of smoking hot bacon fat. And here it is, pan-fried bacon. A nice even cook on each strip, the fat's rendered out so it won't be chewy, and there's no burnt bits to introduce off flavors. But does it pass the taste test? Yes, it absolutely does. It's freaking delicious. I think I'll enjoy it while dominating some Mario Baseball on the old GameCube. I'm now realizing this is weird, so let's throw in some random cat footage. What am I doing? We have more bacon to make. Method number 2, the baking sheet method. This one's great for larger batches of bacon that are evenly cooked every time. There's a bit of setup involved early in this method, but we don't have to nurture the bacon during cooking like we did in the pan fry method. Some aluminum foil here, or as the Brits would say, aluminium. Oh, the Brits, so quirky, ho 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 ho. We'll lay an even layer over top of the baking sheet. I used 2 strips of foil, but do whatever you have to do to fully cover your sheet. This makes cleanup way easier. On go those wire racks from earlier. These aren't mandatory for this method, but I do highly recommend them. We need to lube these bad boys up now. I'm electing for avocado oil, but you could use any oil or cooking spray. I'm just rubbing some onto my hand, then rubbing onto the surface of the rack to make it non-stick. Don't skip this step. Your bacon will stick to these racks. Bacon goes on in one even layer. I'm fitting 7 strips today because that's all I have left. Like the pan fry method, you can overlap these a bit, the fat will render and everything will shrink to half size. That goes into a cold oven. Just like the pan fry method, we're starting at room temperature to give the fat time to slowly render. Heat goes to 400 and I set my timer for 12 minutes. Honestly, I thought showing you what things looked like after 12 minutes would be beneficial in some way, but it totally wasn't, so let's just toss these back in the oven. Here's what things looked like over the next 5 minutes. You can see the bacon contract as the fat renders out. One crucial note about this method is that it accelerates as it cooks, meaning that once the fat begins to render, cooking happens at a more rapid pace. Thus, after 15 to 17 minutes in the oven, you'll want to check back on the bacon at least every 2 minutes. I flipped mine once, which isn't totally necessary, but I do think it results in a more even cook. Back in it goes, and I'll watch it like a hawk. Just like the pan fry method, if things get too hot, that is not good. And just like the pan fry method, I'll pull this just before it reaches my desired doneness. The hot fat will continue to cook the bacon once it's removed from the oven. Look at that bacon. One advantage of this method is the convective heat of the oven. It more evenly cooks each strip, resulting in a gorgeous, uniform appearance. Optionally, pat down both sides to remove the excess fat. It doesn't bother me personally, but I do have a thumbnail to make and I want it to look pretty. And here's our final product, baking sheet bacon. This method produces perfect bacon every time. My final tips are to be careful when handling the hot baking sheet, especially with the rendered fat sloshing around, carefully monitor the bacon towards the end of cooking, and remember that you can overlap the strips slightly with no negative consequences. It's a great way to make bacon for a crowd, or if you want a bunch for BLTs or something. That's all great, but the real question is, does it pass the Ellie test? I think that's a yes. That's it, bacon 2 ways. I love the pan fry method for its simplicity and the baking sheet method for its consistency and quantity of output. Try these methods at home. Let me know how it goes in the comments or through any of my social accounts. Thanks for liking, commenting, and subscribing. Huge thanks to my patrons for supporting my attempts to create informative and enjoyable content. See you next time.